summer months, when school was over and we were able to extricate ourselves from our chores, we spent our time playing tag in the meadows or paddling in the rhines and waterways. It was only when Thomasin came along that our playing became more inventive. She was the daughter of a retired classics teacher who, despite his available time, had none to devote to her. She was the kind of girl we were cautioned against playing with. A motherless girl is a wayward girl. And true enough, a wake of steady trouble followed behind her, with her daring us to steal apples from the orchards and trespass where we were forbidden to go. She almost relished getting caught, in the hope that her father would momentarily take note of her. Without a curfew, she would wander the meadows and marshlands until the sun went down, through the half-lit Dimpsey hour. The pool was as good a bathing spot as any, part of a larger river, the source of which could be traced all the way back to a series of limestone caverns. Our playground was a vast network of fields and waterways, a semi-submerged landscape, which combined with frequent flooding, continually rearranged the boundaries. Despite this, I knew the canals and rhines as well as any child with the liberty to roam, and was able to navigate via the topography only perceptible to a child's eyes, the ant highway along the dry stone wall, the willow tree with a sympathetic face, bark peelings furrowed around two knotted eyes. Perhaps that was why we gave credence to Thomasin's story, because we could glimpse a different world to the one cultivated and controlled by the adults. I remember the first time she told the tale of Hermaphroditus and Salmacis, of the unwitting Greek youth who became absorbed in the womanly body of a water nymph, their two genders merging in one androgynous body. After which, she waded out into the middle of a pool, proclaiming that it was this precise body of water that could render a man effeminate. Her now captive audience, myself included, hovered on the bank, despite the heat of the day, our towels rolled up under our arms. Even if we didn't believe in the pool's invented power, we knew to fear the mockery of our peers if we happened to touch the feminizing water. We never questioned why our pedestrian bathing space, so far removed from a classical ideal, crowded with duckweed and fairy moss, should become energized with similar potency, but we tried, of course, to push each other in, wrestling in the reeds, clinging desperately to the mud, while Thomasin floated regally on her back. She had the pool all to herself that summer, immune to its enchantment by virtue of being a girl. The other children in the neighbourhood began to keep their distance, cautious of the pool and Thomasin in equal measure, but I was completely under her spell, the last to leave when the rest moved on to less cursed bodies of water. She'd call to me from the pool like a siren, treading water while I pretended to gather sticky goosegrass from the hedgerows, ready ammunition to throw at those who might accuse me of being sweet on her. One time, weeks later, I dipped my feet in the pool to prove its impotency, but she coaxed me in gradually until I was floating on the surface beside her. We spent those summers as amphibious beings. When we weren't floating in the water, we were sunning ourselves in the long grass. At other times, she would read, and I would contemplate the plants that grew in the margins. I didn't know the names of them then, but I could see more than just a ubiquitous wall of reed and grass. Ordinary plants, I suppose, but collectively quite beautiful, the overgrown banks interrupted with panicles of furry blooms, bright umbels of white and yellow interspersed amongst the green. My favourite had clusters of pale white flowers edged with lilac, which reflected in the water looked like falling snow. One autumn day, without ceremony, Thomasin's father announced they were moving away. She was no longer a troublemaker. The pool had settled her, but I could see the old discontent stirred up with the prospect of leaving. She cut her hair brutally short, and picked fights with the kids who played truant along the marshes. We sat beside the pool that last night, after she'd ransacked her father's library, casting her favourite books, one by one, into the indifferent water. Mosquitoes we'd barely noticed during our evening swims converged above us, somnolent clouds. "It's only the females that bite," I remember her saying, and in the aftermath of her leaving, I relished the burn of those marks along my arms and legs, scratching the surface of my skin without restraint, so they would not heal.